I was perched on the edge of the velvet sofa, balancing a glass of sparkling water in one hand while the other fidgeted with the cuff of my silk blouse. The smell of vanilla frosting and lavender candles mingled in the air, blending with the low hum of laughter from the backyard. My phone buzzed again on the side table, a sharp vibration that cut through the fragile calm I'd built around myself. It was him. Derek. Of course. The man who still somehow thought he had any right to my attention, my time, my life. I glanced at the message preview. Can we talk? I need to see you. I felt the old tug of irritation and disbelief, but mostly a protective spike of anger. Busy. I was busy with her, my little sister's birthday party, a day I had spent weeks planning. And yet here he was, intruding, expecting the world to pause for him. I leaned back and let my gaze wander to the patio lights, the way they twinkled like mischief across the yard. My mind raced, recalling the countless times I'd excused him, forgiven him, let him in. Not this time. Not ever again. I could almost hear my grandmother's voice echoing in my head. Never let someone's trash dull your shine, Lily. Your life is yours, always. The party carried on, oblivious to the storm in my chest. And I realized I was done. Completely done. I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was 17, sitting at the small, scratched kitchen table in our old suburban home, my hands gripping the edge so tightly my knuckles turned white. Mom's words still echoed, sharp and unforgiving. Why bring more problems like you into this family? You'll never amount to anything. I wanted to scream, to throw my textbook across the room, but I stayed silent. My throat felt tight, and the lump in my chest made it hard to breathe. Dad sat across from me, eyes darting between us, unwilling to intervene. I had tried so hard, staying late at school, taking extra shifts at the diner, dreaming of something bigger than these four walls. And yet, here it was, their dismissal, their judgment, wrapped in a single, devastating sentence. I remember my hands trembling as I clutched the small locket my grandmother had given me the summer before. Inside, a tiny photograph of her smiling face, eyes twinkling with stubborn pride. Lily, she had whispered, don't let anyone decide your worth. You make your own life. You make your own rules. I stared at that locket now, feeling a strange mix of pain and determination. That night, I packed a small bag. Notebooks, a few clothes, the locket tucked against my heart. I didn't have a plan, not really. But I had a promise to myself that I would rise, quietly but fiercely, without waiting for anyone's approval. I walked out into the cool night, the street lamp casting a long shadow behind me, and for the first time, I felt free. Vulnerable, yes, scared, yes, but undeniably alive. That night marked the end of my dependence on their judgments, and the beginning of a life I would claim for myself. It was the first step toward independence, the seed of a woman who would not be dismissed, who would not be underestimated, and who would someday look back and realize just how far she had come. The first months after leaving home were brutal. I slept in a cramped studio apartment above a coffee shop, the smell of espresso mingling with the faint dampness of the building. Every morning, I dragged myself out of bed, laced up worn sneakers, and reminded myself, this is your life now, Lily. No one else controls it. I found work wherever I could, serving tables, receptionist shifts, odd freelance jobs that barely paid. But I held tight to my notebooks, scribbling ideas for designs, sketches for a business I didn't yet know how to start. One rainy afternoon, as I was sketching in a corner of the local library, a woman approached me. Her hair was silver-streaked, eyes sharp but kind. Those drawings, she said, glancing over my shoulder. You have a talent most people overlook. Don't waste it. Her name was Margaret, a retired architect who had built a small consulting firm of her own. She took me under her wing, showing me how to network, pitch ideas, and turn raw talent into something tangible. The first weeks were humiliating. Endless rejections, miscalculations, doubts gnawing at me late into the night. I often stared at the locket in my palm, whispering my grandmother's words like a prayer, drawing courage from the reminder that I was the only one who would define my worth. Slowly, the small victories began. I landed my first client, a tiny boutique needing a logo. The check barely covered groceries, but the thrill of creation coursed through me. Then came the first profitable project, the first time someone paid me what I deserved. Each win, no matter how modest, was a quiet affirmation that I was building something real, something mine. I learned to keep it hidden from my family. My social media posts were carefully curated, nothing revealing the true scope of my growth. I couldn't risk them interfering, dismissing, or claiming a share of the life I was painstakingly creating. My apartment filled with small symbols of achievement, framed designs, journals stacked like trophies, a vision board tucked behind the door where no one could see it. By the time I hit my mid-20s, I had built a business from scratch. My own consultancy, clients who respected me, a network of people who believed in my talent. Financial independence, once a dream, was now a quiet reality. And yet, the sting of those early words from my family lingered, fueling a quiet fire. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving, and I hadn't even let them know. I often looked at that locket, holding it against my chest in the silence of my apartment, and thought, this is just the beginning. They have no idea who I've become. The day they arrived, I felt an odd mixture of calm and anticipation. Derek, my mother, and even my father had shown up at my penthouse apartment, expecting the familiar Lily, timid, struggling, eager to please. I smiled politely as I led them inside, letting them take in the surroundings before I spoke. The apartment was spacious, the kind of place I'd once only seen in magazines. Expensive abstract paintings adorned the walls, the warm glow of recessed lighting highlighting furniture I had handpicked over months of careful budgeting. The kitchen smelled faintly of fresh bread, and orchids I had nurtured for years added a touch of life to the living room. Each item was a testament to late nights, sacrifices, and triumphs no one had bothered to notice. They stopped at the threshold, eyes widening, mouths opening and closing without words. Derek's smugness faltered, replaced by confusion. Mom's hand fluttered to her chest, as if the sight had physically knocked the breath out of her. Dad's face went pale, a subtle shake in his jaw as he scanned the apartment, trying to reconcile this reality with a memory of the struggling girl he'd once known. I let the silence stretch, enjoying the weight of their disbelief. Then, finally, I spoke. "Welcome," I said softly, almost conversational, "to my world. The one I built without anyone's help." Derek's brow furrowed. "Lily, all of this, how?" I walked past them, trailing my fingers along the edge of a sleek glass desk before turning to face them fully. Margaret believed in me when no one else did. I worked nights, I learned, I failed, and I kept going. Every project, every client, every dollar I earned, it was mine. And it still is. I'm the owner of Harper Designs. My net worth exceeds what you probably imagined I'd ever achieve. And I did it while you were busy telling me I wasn't worth it. Mom sank into a chair, trembling, her face pale. We didn't know." I shook my head gently, almost pitying her. "You didn't want to know. You were too busy doubting me to see what I could do. And Derek, I hope you understand that I'm no longer the person you can manipulate or control. I'm done with that." They gawked, the tension thick in the room. Derek opened his mouth, but no words came. The arrogance, the entitlement, all of it had evaporated under the weight of reality. I moved to the window, looking out at the skyline of the city I now called home, and turned back with a calm, unwavering gaze. I didn't just survive. I thrived. And now, you finally get to see what happens when someone decides their life belongs to them alone. Mom's hands shook as she reached for my locket, the same one that had guided me through years of doubt. She whispered, "We're sorry, Lily." I nodded slowly, letting her words hang in the air. This was the moment of reckoning, the point where past judgment met present power. For the first time in years, the balance of power in the room had shifted completely. I felt it in every careful step I took, in every measured word I spoke. I had built this life from nothing, and now it was theirs to witness, but only on my terms. I turned to Mom first. Her eyes were red, glistening, hesitant. I want to help you, I said, but only if you are ready to change. No more dismissals, no more undermining. You need to respect boundaries, and I need to see you take responsibility for your own choices instead of projecting your regrets onto me. She nodded slowly, swallowing hard. I understand, Lily. I'll try. Next was Dad. His pride made him stiff, but I didn't waver. You will stop excusing Derek, stop assuming I'm weak, and start acknowledging the effort people put into their lives. You can't hand over criticism when you never offer support. If you want a place in mine, you'll act like it. Derek's eyes flickered between me and my parents. He opened his mouth to apologize, but I held up a hand. Not yet. First, you need to prove you can respect boundaries, that you can contribute to someone else's life without trying to control it. No more showing up uninvited. No more expecting forgiveness for your mistakes. Earn it. I paced slowly through the living room, letting my words land. I'm willing to help you all rebuild your relationships, but only if you do the work. You will each face your own fears, your own failures. You will support, not manipulate. You will stop being toxic and start being accountable. Only then can we have any kind of connection worth having. Their silence was deafening, but it was exactly what I wanted. I wasn't punishing them. I was guiding them. I cared, yes, but my care was no longer blind. It came with conditions, with standards, with the requirement that they rise as I had or step aside. I caught my reflection in the window, the city lights behind me, and realized that the fear I had carried for years was gone. I had taken control of the narrative, taken control of my life, and now I was taking control of how those who had once dismissed me would intersect with it. This wasn't about revenge. It was about power, the power of self-respect, of boundaries, of reclaiming what had been mine all along. And as I looked at their faces, a mixture of guilt, awe, and tentative hope, I knew that change was possible, but only if they chose to step up. Weeks passed, and change began to ripple through the people I had once feared could never understand me. Mom started attending counseling, learning to listen without judgment, taking care to celebrate achievements instead of belittling them. Dad enrolled in a leadership program at work, slowly realizing that accountability wasn't weakness, but a form of strength. Even Derek began to respect boundaries, attending sessions with a therapist, learning that some doors, once closed, were not meant to be barged through. I watched from a quiet corner of my penthouse, sipping chamomile tea and feeling an unfamiliar lightness in my chest. The locket rested against my heart, warm from years of carrying hope, guidance, and the courage to stand alone. Its weight no longer represented vulnerability. It symbolized resilience, growth, and the life I had fought for, the life I had claimed. Sitting by the window, I observed the city below, its lights sparkling like the milestones of my journey. I thought about all the nights I had doubted myself, all the rejections, the tears, the sleepless hours, and I smiled. Every moment had led me here, to a place where I could forgive without surrendering, care without losing myself, and rise without waiting for permission. When my family finally gathered around the dinner table for my sister's belated birthday celebration, there was laughter that wasn't forced, conversation that wasn't judgmental. They were trying, faltering, yes, but sincerely. And I could feel the weight of the past beginning to lift, replaced by the hope of real, authentic connection. I touched the locket one last time before setting it down on the table. My grandmother's words echoed softly, "Never let someone's trash dull your shine." I had carried them through fire, through fear, through years of doubt, and now I understood their true meaning. I took a deep breath, looking around at the faces of those who had once doubted me, and knew the story wasn't just about survival or triumph. It was about claiming oneself, setting boundaries, and choosing carefully who earned a place in your life. "I'm busy with your sister's birthday party," I whispered softly, smiling, "and I'm busy living my life, on my terms, without compromise. Why bring more trash like you into the world? Because I don't have to." In that moment, I was not just Lily Harper, the woman who had escaped judgment and carved her own path. I was Lily Harper, fully herself, unshakable, and free.